You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. Joe Sloan was a guest on Off the Bench with Jake Hester, and you know it's interesting. The LSU in 2023, as we all know, led the country in both total and scoring offense. That was, of course, Jaden Daniels, Heisman year, Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors. It was incredible. I mean, they scored every time they had the ball, kind of because they needed to score every time they had the ball. And I remember a big part of our conversation going into last season was, well, we know that the offense is going to regress. Like, it would be hard to be literally the best offense in America in back-to-back seasons. So, well, we all figured, yeah, they're going to regress a bit. The question is, how much? And similarly, on the other side, we looked and said, all right, well, defensively, they were literally the worst defense statistically in the history of the program. Well, they're not going to be that again because they'd have to literally be the worst defense in the history of the program again, so they're going to get better. So a lot of the conversation last year going into the season was, all right, I know the offense, you lose Denbrock, you lose Jaden Daniels, you lose Neighbors, you lose Thomas. Like, there's going to be a regression, but how much? And the defense was awful, and they're going to be better, but how much? And that gap was really going to tell the story of the season. And in many ways, it did. LSU averaged in 2023 45 points per game. 45 points per game. In 2024, they averaged 30 points per game, which came out to be 40. They were 47th in the country in scoring. In defense, they went from the hundreds to top 60, just inside the top 60. So it kind of put you smack dab in the middle defensively and a little better than that offensively as far as scoring. And a big part of that was your inability to run the ball at times and settling for field goals in the red zone because you didn't have a great consistent ground game. But you all know the story. You know how it played out. So now as you look at this season, a big question is, okay, you averaged 30 points per game last year. How much closer to the 45 from 23 can you get? Because when you look at last year, that's the difference in the USC game. In the first possession of the season, you drive the ball right down the field and you stall inside the 5. You can't get it in the end zone. You look at the Texas A&M game where you blew a lead because you couldn't salt that game away. That's 2 games right there where you lost that conceivably, if you filled that gap between 45 and 30 points, you win. Well, you're a playoff team. You got whitewashed against Alabama. We all remember that game. But all that to say, that's sort of the target this year offensively is, all right, I don't think you're going to be what you were. You may be. I don't think you're going to be what you were in 2023, averaging 45 a game. But you should be a lot better than you were in 2024, where you averaged 30 a game. So how much of that gap do you fill? It's probably going to tell the story for this year's offense. And when it comes to how you would identify this year's offense, when Joe Sloan sat with Jake Hester, he was pretty clear about the one word he would use to describe this offense.
We're definitely a fast offense. We have speed all over the field. And I think the important thing will be is to be able to use that to our advantage to create, misdirection and create issues for the defense. And I think that's where we're going to start. I think what we've done a good job of, and really with Trey'Dez and Bauer and those guys, is having the ability to create some different formations and do some different things and some of the different pieces on offense to use in multiple ways to get different looks to the defense. And I think our guys have really bought into that to be able to add, to maybe some of the things that we've already been doing, which I think will be really exciting.
2 things you mentioned there, fast, using motion and things like that, and personnel to give defenses different looks. If I were to illustrate that for you, I know we talked about it, but if you were at the spring game or the open spring practice, scrimmage, whatever you want to call it, when they went to a goal line period, they ran 4 plays, and on 4 plays, they ran 4 dramatically different formations, including one where Juwan Johnson went in at quarterback and Nussmeier flexed out in motion to the left side. There was another where you had 5 tight ends on the field because they put Bo Bordelon on the field in a tight end jersey, in addition to the other tight ends they had on the field with Bauer Sharp, Trey'Dez Green, Donovan Green. 4 tight ends, and then Bordelon. That's what he's illustrating there. Is you've got a ton of speed, so use it. I mean, we saw Xavier Thomas, Aaron Anderson in the backfield, coming in motion, lining up in the backfield, going in motion, causing misdirection, crossing. Joe Sloan's going to be in his bag this year, and I think he's right. Like, it's a challenge to find ways to get all of these different offensive weapons involved, but it's a fun one because you're basically trying to figure out how to play with all the toys in the chest in one given season. It's a challenge, but a fun one. Of course, you've got Nussmeier, who now is going from year 1 into year 2, and Sloan did talk about the offseason for Nussmeier going into year 2.
He's been able to really watch and dive into every bit of his film from the last year, and now take that into spring with having a really good plan on exactly what he wanted to improve on and what we wanted him to improve on in all the different facets of what we do. And I think that's what, when you watch him really from January up until spring ball, that's what he did. And then we would kind of reset during spring ball and say, okay, this is what's really getting better. This is what, okay, we need to adjust and maybe shift our focus, or, hey, let's look at our footwork here, or let's look at what we're thinking about here. Something else maybe rear to set a little bit. But I think you just see a calmness and a understanding every day of exactly what he needs to do. And I think that's the piece that experience brings you that is hard to have until you actually play.
You know how significant it was a week ago when the Nussmeier shared the photo of Garrett's graduation? Why that's so important? Because effectively now Garrett Nussmeier in his final semester is a full-time football player. And I know they're there for school. I know that. But Zach Mettenberg, I could tell you stories about Zach Mettenberger, Joe Burrow, and Jaden Daniels, each of them, about how in their final semester, it was all football. I mean, Zach Mettenberger in 2013 used to show up in flip-flops, Starbucks in hand, first in the building, and he and Cam Cameron would sit there and watch film all day. And Zach had an awesome year in 2013. Joe Burrow, same thing. When Joe Burrow's asked the Ohio State LSU thing, what does he say all the time? I went to school at Ohio State. I played football at LSU. It's true. And then you look at Jaden. The VR room that LSU has, I mean, there's been so many stories done on it now, but Jaden was sort of the one that first took advantage of that. They gave him his own key card. He was the first in the building. He'd go simulate games on that virtual reality headset in the ready room that they have. I mean, I know, like, whenever we go to press conferences, we walk right by it. I mean, it's like a small, like, rectangular room, like a turf field. You're looking at a big screen, and you could sit there and go through your motions. Like, all of those guys took a meteoric leap because from year 1 to year 2, they became full-time football players. And that's where Garrett is now, going into his 5th year as a graduate who could take a minimum online course load, already got a degree in hand, and concentrate for the next 6 months on becoming the best quarterback in the country to win a national championship at LSU and go lock up a $50 million contract and be the first, second pick in the draft, whatever it may be. He's got the same opportunity that those 3 guys before him had. The other thing that Sloan talked about that I found really interesting was Kaden Durham and what they're expecting there from year 1 to year 2, because he was freshman All-SEC and he was your leading rusher and he played half the season with dislocated toes and a plate in his foot. But you got to be better offensively running the football, and Durham's a big part of that.
What Kaden was able to do last year, for just maybe the public, you would just see, okay, Caden's a freshman, and you watch him and you go, oh, wow, he's doing such great things for a freshman, for a true freshman. But I would add this. I mean, he didn't get here till the summer, and what he was able to do and pick up in the summer, carry over, I think it speaks to really, one, the program he came from, but how he handles himself mentally and how he carries himself, his maturity. But for a true freshman in the SEC to go out and play the way he did and play through some of the different injuries he was dealing with, yeah, he was pretty dynamic. So I can't wait for for him to be able to stay healthy throughout the year, and what type of runner he could be week in, week out when he's feeling a little bit better.
It'll be fun watching this offense here in 2025. If you want to get that full interview with Joe Sloan and Jay Kester, you get it off the bench. YouTube podcast, just search OTB LSU or off the bench, get the full show. But the interview's up. We got it linked as well at louisianasports.net if you want to get there. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.